If you're thinking about moving right here to Houston, Texas, stop what you're doing. There is a right way to plan out a move to a new city. And after having over 1,000 conversations with different clients looking to relocate here to the Houston area, we have perfected the process of helping people plan out their move and ultimately purchasing here in Houston. And while everybody's process looks a little bit different, there are some basic fundamentals that you're gonna wanna stick to and adhere to ensure that you don't waste your time and you get to a conclusion as quickly as possible as to whether or not Houston's gonna be the right fit for you and your family. And so research is going to be step number one. Now you can get on Google and ask your questions, you can get in Facebook relocation groups, but ultimately what I've found is that we have put together all of the information that you're gonna need in order to make a decision about moving here to Houston. And so what's really nice is with no pressure from talking to realtors or agents, you can just log onto YouTube, whether it's in the evenings or you're on the toilet or whatever it is, and do your research. You can see the areas, you can hear about the areas, you can weigh the pros and cons, and ultimately this is going to lead you into your next step in the process. So step number 2 is going to be make a list of your desires. You probably know deep down in an ideal world what exactly it is that you want in your next home or in your next area or in your next community, so that as you go through that research process, you can start to identify areas that check the boxes or areas that don't necessarily live up to the standards of what you're hoping you and your family's future looks like. And this list can contain a lot of things. It could contain good schools, it could contain walkability, it could be convenient grocery stores, it could be more space. You don't want neighbors right on top of each other. It could also be a community pool, or it could be close proximity to wherever it is that you're planning on working when you do relocate. So there's no right or wrong way to come up with a list of the things that you want, but I would definitely recommend ranking them in order of importance. We'll talk to clients all the time and they'll tell us, hey, these are my non-negotiables. But once we actually get into that research phase and we start identifying areas that could work for them, what we really need to do then is kind of prioritize which ones are most important. Are the schools most important, or is your commute to work most important? Because you might not get both. So you don't need to know that today, but you need to know that that's coming. As you narrow it down more and more, ultimately, more than likely, you're probably just buying one home to live in. And if that's the case, you're going to have to prioritize what it is exactly that you're looking for. Now, step 3 is key. And obviously, me being a real estate broker, I know this can come off salesy. You don't want to do it too late. Far too often we get calls from clients that unfortunately have done this whole process in the wrong order, and we're actually having to undo some of the things that either they've learned, we're having to reteach them or re-educate them. So you're gonna save a lot of time and headaches by reaching out to us. Listen, we get calls, texts, and emails every single day. I'm not kidding, from people just like you looking to move here. We have over 100 people contact us per month. And so for that reason, I would say reach out to a real estate professional now, because what we're gonna do is have a 20-30 minute conversation with you and give you a game plan so that you can see where exactly it is you need to take your home search. And essentially this video is very similar to exactly what that phone call is going to look like. Now, when you reach out, we're gonna talk about a lot of the things that we're talking about in this video, but we are going to get to the nitty-gritty. We're going to ask you clarifying questions that help us do one thing, and that is tap into our knowledge base and help lead you and guide you to the best place for you and your family. If you tell me that you want really nice lush trees, or that you don't want a back neighbor, or that your home needs to be a certain size or of a certain age, immediately while you're telling me this, I am thinking through all of the different areas that I'm super familiar with, or one of our agents is, and they're going to start to identify where it is that they think is going to be the best fit for you. And you really need them to lead this charge. You can use our videos, but ultimately the agents are going to know about things that might not even be in any of our videos, and they're going to be able to identify the places that you really need to focus your efforts on, which is going to lead to the 4th step, because the 4th step is after you contact us, the first thing that our agents are going to do after that phone call is we're going to set you up on a search. The criteria that we're going to be asking for when we set up a search is what your budget is. We're also going to create a geographic area based on the search. Now, if you haven't narrowed it down enough, it might cover all of Houston. We might have to set up a couple of different searches, but ultimately the goal is to show you your options so that you can compare step 2, which was that list of needs that you want, and see if they are actually realistic. Because at the end of the day, we ask 2 questions to clients that really help us identify whether or not they are realistic in their budget and in their desires. How much does your dream home actually cost you? Because if we set up a search for $500,000 and you're not seeing anything you like, I'd be willing to bet that if we bumped it up to $800,000, that you would start to find some options. And so for that reason, sometimes we'll set the search more broad, not to bump your search up, but ultimately so that you can start to adjust expectations so that they actually meet the current market conditions here in the Houston area. And then the other question that we're gonna ask is, with your budget that you stated, let's say it's $500,000, are you seeing any options at that budget that you are happy with, that you'd be comfortable putting in an offer on? If I send you a search of 100 homes and there are 0, then chances are we don't need to move any further. We're off somewhere and we need to figure out where exactly it is that we want to readjust our criteria, our expectations, or I know everyone hates this word, but potentially compromise. You have to look at the full equation and ultimately decide what's most important to you. And yes, there are going to be times, especially with higher interest rates, that you are going to have to compromise. So once this search has been set up, you've had a chance to look through all of your options and you have a realistic expectations for what you can get, then your next step is going to be to plan a trip. Now there's really 2 types of clients and 2 types of trips that we have found work best for clients. The first is for somebody that's in that discovery phase, somebody that isn't looking to buy when they're actually in town. Maybe they're open to buying if it's new construction and it's 9 months out, but for the most part, they're really just here for a discovery trip. For those clients, we have found that the highest and best use of their time while they are here is to meet up with an agent on the first day that they're here in town up at the office for about an hour and really rehash through everything that we've discussed so far, go through their search, and come up with a game plan for your time while you're here. And we can do a lot through video, but the one thing we can't do is give you that feeling that you get when you've finally driven into the perfect place for you and your family's next chapter. Now, a lot of people ask, how long do I actually need? Well, it depends on how much research you do on the front end and how narrowed down you are, but I have found that you really don't need more than 3 days. If you have a week, that's great. You can break it up and it doesn't feel so rushed. But if you have 3 fully committed days to exploring Houston, you can get a lot accomplished because of the questions that we're going to ask you. It is going to narrow down much quicker than you would expect. Now, depending on if you're interested in resale homes or new construction, your time on this trip is going to be spent differently. Typically, we're not going to be showing you inside of resale homes that you have no intention of purchasing for a couple of different reasons. 1, it's not the best use of your time. You need to focus on the area. 2, it's not necessarily respectful to the sellers that are needing to get their dogs and kids out of the house for a buyer that's not actually serious. And ultimately, 3, is it actually ties up our time where we really need to focus it on the clients that are here in town ready to actively purchase, because that is going to be you one day. And I promise you, we're going to drop everything that we're doing to make sure that we fight to get you the perfect home when that time comes. So we've met at the office, we've given you a game plan, you've gone out, you've explored the entire areas. Every single day at the end of the day, we're gonna hop on a call with you and we're gonna review what exactly it was that you loved and didn't like about that day so that we can give you that game plan and cast that vision for your next day. Now, as your trip comes to an end, this is about the time that we're really gonna set out the timeline for when it is that you wanna move. Now, we're having this conversation on our first phone call and we're helping you walk through what your timeline could look like, but it gets a lot more serious once you've come to the area, you've seen it for yourself, and you go, okay, we're making this happen. We found the area, we know we want to move. That's when we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty of the timeline. And there are a lot of different ways to handle approaching the timeline for your purchase. We're going to ask you a lot of questions that are going to make sure we cover all of your blind spots, because everybody's move is different. Up until this part of the process, everything's pretty similar for clients, but when it comes to identifying their timeline to move, there can be a lot of moving parts. Jobs can be involved, kids' schools can be involved. You could have timing the market as a factor. You might have a home that you need to sell. You might have a lease that's expiring at a certain time. And we need to take all of that into consideration. And I won't get into every single scenario in this video, but I want you to know that once you've come into town, you've identified that you do want to move here, you kind of have a general idea of where it is that you want, you can go back home and we can do a lot of stuff for you virtually. We can show homes for you virtually. We can send you new listings that come live that might meet your criteria. But the main thing is making sure that we have a game plan moving forward to help you navigate getting into a home here in Houston. If you do have a home to sell, we're gonna have to talk about what it's like to list it. Now, the good news is we actually are part of a preferred referral network, and we have found by doing this hundreds of times that it really makes a big difference and moves the needle in a smooth experience for our clients when we're working with an agent that we're familiar with, that we trust on the other side of this deal. And so if you aren't familiar with a realtor in your area that you've worked with time and time again that you trust, leave that up to us. We have this amazing referral network of agents that we work with all across the entire country, and by connecting you with them, we're going to be on the same page and really help plan out that timeline. Now, there's two questions that you need to be asking your agent in your current marketplace if you do have a home to sell. Those two questions are: how quickly do you reasonably expect our home to sell based on data, average days on market in your current marketplace? And then you can use that to determine when it is exactly that you need to put your home up for sale in order to time out the sale of that home if you do need to sell in order to purchase here in Texas. And then the other question is, worst case scenario, what price is my home going to need to sell at to sell in a timely manner, and how much money from the proceeds of that sale am I going to net in order to take those over to my next purchase? Those two questions should be easily answered by any competent real estate agent in your marketplace. And if, like I said, if you can't find one, leave that up to us. We will make sure that that side of the transaction is just as smooth as our side. Now, once you've done all of this, the fun part starts. You get to actually pick your home. We get to find that perfect property for you and your family, whether it's new construction or resale. We get to submit offers, potentially negotiate, and ultimately get under contract. Now, here in the state of Texas, once you go under contract, it's typically a 30-day process from a signed contract until you actually close and get keys to your home. Now, there's a little bit of flexibility in that, but that is the generic standard timeline for most real estate contracts here in Texas. So once you're under contract here and you've already gone through your option period, you've done your inspections, and you are committed and prepared to move forward all the way until closing, at that point, you want to go ahead and get those movers scheduled as soon as possible and go ahead and actually start planning that smooth move right here to the Houston area. Now, there are going to be some other smaller details that aren't part of these major processes that we've laid out for you today. And those are going to be the reason that you need us, because every single day something new can come up, something can change at work, something can change in your personal life, and you need somebody in your corner to be able to navigate that. And ultimately, you want somebody in your corner that does this every single day, that has seen it all. And I will say that is exactly who we are. We do this every single day for people just like you looking to move to the Houston area. And so if that does interest you at all, go ahead. Don't be shy. Pick up the phone, give us that call, shoot us that text, send us that quick email. That way we can help you start planning that smooth move right here to Houston, Texas. And if you're not sure where to start when it comes to looking at the different areas of Houston, go ahead and click on this video. This is the top 10 Houston, Texas suburbs. Now, there are other suburbs that aren't in this video, but this is a great place to start doing your research to see if Houston is right for you and your family.